What's good, Love Squad? Hey! You are catching me after I've had enough sleep, just enough. So my energy is good and I'm ready. Welcome to Fandom. I am Kim Best, aka Glam Powered, at Glam Powered on IG. And Fandom is all about shows and soon movies that I'm watching, and hopefully you're watching too. We're currently doing Lovecraft Country, which has become one of my favorite shows. Like, oh my goodness, how have you guys been enjoying the show? Let me know. Is it good? Give me a thumbs up if you've been enjoying it. Give me thumbs up if you've been really, really enjoying it. So we are going to get started with our discussion, analysis, prediction of Lovecraft episode 6, Meet Me in Daegu. Oh, God. First of all, I am an aesthetic person. I mean, the scenery was just so beautiful. Oh my God. And the seasons were a very important character in this episode. Um, of course, the main character, the starlet, Gia, was wonderful. Jamie Chung did a wonderful job. I'm just like, she came for the role. She did such a great job. I'm so happy with the performance. For me, I fell in love with this episode, I would say, after watching it the second time. I felt like I had a deeper appreciation of it. Anyways, before we really get into this, I have to introduce the structure and organization of my notes for those who don't know. This is an extended prediction and analysis video, okay? So generally what I do is I have people, and people is usually like commentary on the people in the episode, maybe discussing their behavior, their moods, their vibes, that type of thing, their names. We're past the point of introduction, so we're no longer doing that. Then we have context, which is the who, what, where, and where, how, kind of like the review. So we're going to get into that, what happened and all that stuff. And then concepts. Concepts are more in my analysis of different themes, I should say, and things that happen in this episode. Also, how they parallel within the series. My favorite scene. Then we have the prediction, which of course is very important. Questions. And then we have tidbits. Okay. So tidbits tend to be like more factoids and other things that were brought up in the episode, and I think are worth maybe just saying a few more things about, or giving you a little bit more information about. All right. So anyways, let's get back to the discussion here. So we talked about the scenery. I don't know what it is about fall for me. We feel all the seasons, but I just felt like fall. There was a lot of fall in this episode, and it was perfect because if you think about like hibernation, right? Transformation, hiding of the truth, shadow, like that type of energy. That was all very pertinent and relevant to this episode and what went down in the episode. So I kind of felt like fall in particular was a character within itself. But anyways, I'm gonna go down the order of my template here to keep my thoughts organized and keep me on track. So first we have people, and I have been calling her Miss South Korea this whole time because we did not know who she was, but now we know her as Gia. Yes. Hi, Gia, played by Jamie Chung. Hey, girl. So Gia's also the Kumiho, right? Which we learn about in this episode. But I know that that's also Kumihos are actually like a cultural, I guess you could say, figure. And they are, what is it? I think it's nine tails. Y'all correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's nine tailed foxes. and they have different, they don't necessarily do what they do in Lovecraft country, but they are definitely creatures that you want to stay away from. All right. We also have excuse me, guys. Let me pause for a second because I feel like I'm about to cough. I don't want to be coughing all up in your ear. Okay. We're back. Pardon me. So then we have her mama, which, I mean, these characters stay complicated. They stay complicated in this series. They don't have simple nothing, simple nobody, right? And the parents tend to be hella complicated. Okay, Gia had a complicated mama. Then we have Tick, the murderer. And I'm trying to think, has he killed anybody else or anything? No, we haven't seen him. He's been beating people, almost killing them, but not necessarily murdering them. We got to see Tick the murderer this time. And shout out to the shaman, or priestess, like witch in the woods, very traditional witch in the woods vibes. Oh my God, I was so here for that character. I was just like, yes, I loved it. So, just know, spoiler alert, I try to say that at the beginning of the video. I am talking about what's happening in this episode. If you ain't watch, don't get mad at me for talking about stuff that happened, period. Watch the series, read the book. Okay? All right. So we have the people, and, so let's go into context a little bit more. So Gia is a vessel for a male in this adaptation or depiction of a Kimio, a male soul devouring spirit who must devour 100 souls before becoming human again. And these are the souls of men. And, this is like a vengeance. I talk about this a little bit in the concepts, but we have the whole angry woman theme here again. Empowered angry woman. Because I think that, angry woman, air quotes, that whole concept gets a bad rap. But you know what? We have a range of emotions and we must feel and express them. Okay? So this is how it's depicted in this episode. And what was that? Was that episode 4? With Ruby? I mean, there you go again. We was stiletto raping people. Was it episode 5? I'm starting to get my little episodes blurred. But anyways, I mean, explosiveness, right? We see explosiveness in that episode. The metamorphosis episode, we see explosiveness in this episode too, right? So, here for it. It's a different type of explosiveness, but it's still explosiveness. So anyways, and what do you guys think about those tails? 9 tails coming out of all the openings, the eyes, the nose. What are the mucus? Is it the mucus openings or something like that? The ears, the vajayjay, the behind, all of that. Okay. And then we also find out that, Tick the murderer he was doing a lot of firsts, including being intimate and making love for the first time with Gia. Can you imagine losing your virginity to a monster? We find out, he was a younger man. He's still a young man, but he did not have the kind of seasoning, the kind of rind, the kind of salt, little barbecue sauce that we see on his in his presence, at this time in his life. This was before returning home, right? Just, when he was in the war. And we get more insight into his time in the war, but this is not his episode. It's Gia's episode. We here to learn about her, okay? And find out why every time when he calls Gia, because he called her twice so far in the series, why he started nutting up and crying and doing all this and just like, what was going on? Well, now we know. Context. We have it. Okay? So that's a little bit about that. Okay. Okay. A little bit more about that because I do feel like it's important. One of the issues, because we talked about the angry woman. So Gia, the person, not the monster, right? A little bit more back history. This is important. So how did she become Gia, the monster? Okay. Uh, she was raped by her stepfather. I mean, oh my God. So her mother was like, okay, you know, this is what we're doing. Guess what? This is not what we're doing. We're not going to do this anymore. And she basically went to the shaman and was like, yo, turn my daughter into a Camille because it's time for him to go. And men like him, most likely. Like, I'm sick of it. She was like, no, we're not doing this no more. They lost their status, right? They were rich, wealthy, influential, lost their status. So we see that happen as well, the disgrace. And now they're on the path to recovery within society during this time in Korea, right? So there's a lot of context and layers going on there, you guys. But wow. Wow. And then we see the monster realizing that, you know what, she's trying to figure out how to be a monster, but also how to be human, if that makes sense. Learning. And I thought that that was a very interesting layer. And Tick is also really, he's being a monster for the first time in his life too, because he's a kid in this episode. So we see all of that taking place, all of this learning and developing, and, you know, different types of monsters, the juxtaposition of that happening. We have the war, which is a monstrosity, and the people who take place in it from both sides, you know, civilians to the perpetrators of the war and all that stuff. So yeah, that's a little bit more into the context. I mean, there was a lot going on in this episode. And it's really interesting because for me, when I watched it the first time, I liked it, but I needed to really process the I really needed to process the complexities. There was a lot. Watching it the second time really helped me with that this time around. All right, so there's that. Now let's get into concepts. So first, I have respectability, right? We see Gia and her mother, you know, they want to be respected within their community and regarded. They were at the top of the heap, and, you know, things have declined for them. Now they're at the bottom. They're disgraced. And Gia's mother was already disgraced because she had that baby. She had Gia out of wedlock. So there was a lot going on that she was fighting with and really wanting to just be like, you know, I just want to be considered a respectable, upstanding citizen. I want my family to be regarded in a, you know, respected position as well. There's a lot of that. And you have to think about women and how much power women have had throughout the world in terms of this, you know, their station and their lot in life. This takes place in the 50s. So, you know, it's still limited today. It was quite limited back then, rather limited. So what did you do? You married, and you married well, right? That's not happening this time around for obvious reasons. So there's that. Okay. I wanted to talk about Gia doing the speed dating scene. I put here that she just gave off this bird with the broken wing vibe. You know, it's kind of like when you're doing something like that, and I'm thinking about sports too. Like everyone else is getting picked for the team, but you're not. Just that lack of confidence. And as I'm thinking about it, I'm realizing she was really lacking confidence in terms of her ability to actually be human and like connect with people and find love. And that was a part of her experience in this episode, right? So that confidence betrayed her in certain situations. But then she overcame it, and, you know, she commenced with the soul sucking. In this episode, she has removed 99 souls, and Tick was going to be her last one, but, we find love. and strange places. I'm thinking about that Rihanna song, I think. And yeah, it is what it is. This is Lovecraft. So there's that. Um, then the Kumiho, I thought this was interesting. The Kumiho spirit, she or it was trying to understand love, process love, know love, because she was having a very specific experience of love and just needing to know, like, what is this and what's happening with this, because she has so many different versions of it. She experiences so many versions of it during her experience as a monster, which, I mean, and she's not biased. There's no judgment there because she's not human. And I thought that that was a very universal kind of energetic approach to this. And I also just thought that it was incredibly accurate. The universe is like that. It does not judge. It just perceives what is. And she acted in a way and reacted in a way that was really reflective of that quality, right? This is what is. This is love, and so is this, and so is this, and there's no right and wrong about it, right? And that concept of what's the right kind of love came up in this episode, and how can you love a monster, and how can a monster be loving? That came up in this episode, and I just thought that that was really interesting commentary. Very well done. Then we have Yo. Oh, okay. Before I do that, I think she brought home a lot of men, but there was one guy from the bar that she had accosted, like he was the 99th soul, 98th soul, I think. The Korean gentleman, uh, I felt like she brought home men who kind of reminded her of her stepfather. That guy at least did. Not the private, but they probably all did in some way, to be honest with you. But I was just like, that made me think about how we have a type, right? Even though she's a monster inside, she's still Gia on the outside. So how she might have attracted certain men, because she was trying to date an engineer, like a nice, good guy, good boy type. And that didn't happen. We didn't really see her with, she was unsuccessful with him. She didn't resonate with him at the speed date, right? She resonated with men, it seemed, that were a little bit more complicated. You want to put it like that, right? These men had a different frequency going on. So I thought that was interesting, who she resonated with. And then let's talk about that candle setup in the room, the love room, if you will, or the death room. It's interesting how it's both. That candle setup was bomb. I'm like, how can you do that? If you know how to do that, let a girl know. I just thought that was such a dope, magical thing. And I didn't even research that to see if it actually exists, if that's possible. But, anything's possible. So, yeah, I love that. She would light up one candle and then all the other candles would light up. I was just like, oh, so dope. So dope. I thought that was so cool. Okay. Then we have this concept of convention versus morality. Okay. So Gia and her mom. Okay. Right. And then the war and the communists, like these different juxtapositions of people on different camps about the same, they were arguing about a specific thing, but they were on different camps regarding that argument. And we also see the unification in a way of these different camps. We see that with Gia and her mom, her mom was not having it. She was like, girl, you better suck these souls because I want my daughter back, right? You's a monster. You not my real daughter. And then the war and the communists, we kind of see that with Tick and Gia. He's there to be an imperialist, and she's questioning and really against that concept, and just like, no, like her and her best friend, her best friend was a communist in this episode, no, like, this is what I stand for and I should not be villainized for it. Like, so that was interesting. Then we have conviction and faith leading to a distortion of the truth. This is really related to her mother. Like her mother was, her faith, like the demonstration of her faith was just so powerful. She was just like, no, like, you're my daughter, you're still in there. And just how she candy coated what happened, I love you. And Gia wasn't having it. She was just like, the monster inside, the Camille inside was just like, nah, you were a pariah. That's not what happened. I saw myself being raped by your husband night after night after night. You were just trying to get your comfort, your security. You didn't care about me. Don't try to make it seem like you cared about me, right? It's so interesting the way we do that as humans. We distort the truth to be more confident and just to lessen the severity or harshness of our world, our decisions, our worlds, and our realities. So we see that happening. And then what else? I already talked about the angry woman, right? But let's talk about it again. The righteousness. Because if you think about it, okay, Gia was angry, but her mother was the one that took her to the shaman, right? Her mother was angry. And really, Gia was angry in her own right because she was the rape survivor in this case, right? But her mother was sick and tired and disgusted. She had to have been to make a deal like that, to be like, turn my daughter into this soul-sucking spirit. How angry must you be? How much must you desire vengeance? I'm going to go out on a limb and say a lot. Okay, a loads. So that was interesting. Then we have this concept of assimilation. Oh my God, you see that with the Koreans who were, pro-imperialism and democracy and whatnot. And then we also have it with the monster trying her best to be human. We also see that in different layers too with the Black and brown people who are fighting in this war, right? They're doing this for a country that could care less about them, could not give an F about them. That comes up, the question of why are you fighting for this bleeping country that don't even like you? They treat you like trash back home. So, I mean, really, like, what are you doing? Why are you fighting for this country, right? We see that. Okay. And then this concept of being made whole again. And I'm thinking about this song. I think it's Dean Martin. You guys, I've been listening to swing lately because I'm starting to get into like swing dance, low key. But I think it's Dean Martin. But anyways, the song is like, you're nobody till somebody loves you, right? And Gia is experiencing that, you're nobody till somebody loves you. And to be honest with you, so is Tick. That was one of the things that connected them. Tick was wanting that familial love, that fatherly love that, he never got. never got in the way that he wanted. Jill wasn't feeling too loved by her mama because her mama was like, you's a monster. You are not my daughter. Just do your job. Right? And just feeling out of sync and out of place in different ways, both of them for different reasons. So we see them kind of being each other's missing puzzle piece and really connecting because of that shared pain and trauma. Okay. We have the concepts of tradition, values, and then change, and just how all those things are battling each other and competing with each other in this episode, right? The communists, once again, versus the imperialists, the mother who can only, who's an aspiring social climber, right? She can only climb up through the ranks by having a good husband or having a daughter that gets a good husband, to restore the family value to society. Just so much going on. And then also this feeling of being trapped. Gia and her mother are trapped in their station. They have a very long, hard, difficult road ahead of them. They've had a very long, hard, and difficult road. And then Tick also, all the soldiers, all of them really, the country itself, being trapped in this war. Um, and then we have healing, and how it's a messy process. And I wanted to talk about this. I know people might think, what, when I say this, but remember, Gia, the person, she's an angry woman, and her vengeance is being expressed through the monstrosity of what she's become, if you want to think about it from an energetic standpoint. And she's doing all this soul sucking to rectify her spirit and to release that energy, right? So this is healing. It is. It's messy, but honestly, think about going to a therapist when you have like what we would call like regular trauma, even though what she had is regular trauma, but this is Lovecraft, so we taking it to a supernatural place. I take my commentary to an esoteric supernatural place. So here we are. This is healing. That healing is hard for a lot of people. It can be, it's so many things, just like this episode. It's beautiful. You learn a lot. They learned a lot about themselves, but I would not necessarily describe it as easy. In this episode, it's quite messy, like literally messy, blood everywhere. It can be theoretically and metaphorically messy as well, in the real world, if you will. So I thought that was interesting. The Imperial USA. Vomit. Vomit, vomit, vomit. And it's really interesting because first we were doing that outwardly, this whole imperialism thing. Now we're doing it inwardly. And look at what's happening to this country. The erosion of this country, because the same energy is now being reflected inwardly. It's despicable. Despicable. Everybody minding their own, everybody minding everyone else's business instead of minding their own. The government minding everyone else's business at this time instead of their own. Now we're doing it to ourselves. We're doing it to ourselves. All right. Tick received his karma. Murdering people. He almost gets murdered as well, right? And in the episode, we see that he's still gonna die, right? Death begets more death, and there's deaths of many types, shades, and hues happening. Okay, so there's that. Oh, I wanted to talk about suffering too. Suffering begets more suffering. I'm thinking about Tick when he was upset in the hospital bed. Like he really did feel young. It's sad to say that there's a numbness that comes when you're an adult who's been through things. But throughout this series, we've seen numb Tick, more or less. Tick after the fact. He's already experienced this stuff, so he's adjusted to the pain and the suffering, if you will, in his way. A lot of us, we can relate to that. In this episode, he's experiencing a lot of that adjustment for the very first time, and he's having a hard time with it, as those of us who have been through things do. And then you learn to deal. And you learn to keep it moving, And I'm not saying it's good or bad. It's just life, But we see that depicted in this particular episode. Okay. The disconnect from humanity. Monsters. Tick. Shooting people in the head like it's nothing. Nothing. For nothing. And then, of course, Gia. Sucking souls. The disconnect, and also the longing to be reconnected at the same time. Isn't that interesting? Escapism. Tick goes to books, Gia goes to Judy Garland. They're both wanting to get out of their realities, out of their situations, out of their circumstances. Longing and survival. These are all related to escapism and the disconnect from humanity. Um, Tick, I love, even earlier in the season, we saw him be honest, right, about who he was and how he was. He did it again in this episode with Gia. He said, I have done horrible things, and I'm a virgin. He's really good at being honest about himself, and that's one thing that I like about his character, because that's not an easy thing to do. Most of us would rather lie. Most people do lie to themselves, and they believe the lie, and that's the problem. So that was interesting. Um, hmm, huh. We have people's many faces. The nuance. We're all complicated, complex beings. We see that being explored and discussed. And then, what else? Um, Killing somebody before you make love for the first time. I'm going to say that again. Killing somebody before you make love for the first time. Tick has already murdered people, multiple people at this point, before he meets Gia and falls in love with her. I just thought the fact that we live in a world where that's possible is insane. That's all I want to say about that. Okay, so I'm going through my notes and I'm kind of pacing myself a bit. Uh, Last thing I want to talk about. Actually, two things. Number one, seeing magic from other cultures. We don't see enough of that. We see magic from one perspective in stories, a lot of the times. And I'm here for it, obviously. Like, I am a supernatural, give it to me. But this was just so rich and so wonderful. And I want to see more. I need more. And I'm thinking culturally of like how I fell in love with books was through a very distinct, specific cultural expression of magic. Virginia Hamilton's book, The People Could Fly, and her stories, those books were the books that made me fall in love with reading. And those books are about magic and the supernatural from the Black American perspective. Like, I have been in love with magic. I'm getting a little emotional about it. Since I began reading. Like, reading is how I became introduced to this world of magic. And I think it's so important to have different cultural expressions of magic depicted. We need more representation like this. I felt like they needed to give Gia her own series. I'm here for that. Like, I should send out a petition. I want to see more. I want to see more of this. It was such a treat. So there's that. And then the last thing I'm going to talk about is their truth telling. Okay. Um, oh my God. We hear Judy Garland in her, I don't know, her autobiography, I guess we could say, talking about being the victim of so many untruths. And we see the characters, you know, they're struggling with this concept in their own ways. Am I a murderer? Am I a monster? Am I human? What am I? And versus what the world wants me to be, what my parents want me to be, because we see a lot of that going on in this episode. They did such a wonderful job just having those conversations. I said earlier that the conversations in this episode were very important, because they were super important. Okay. Now, favorite scene. I had I made some notes here about quotes and things that were said and also scenes. So the first thing was, there's nothing wrong with being different, right? This is for Gia and her best friend, because Gia's best friend was a communist and she was, doing her part to contribute to the revolution. Um, who has felt the deepest grief is best able to experience supreme happiness. We must have felt what it is to die, that we may appreciate the enjoyments of living. Of course, from Dumas, like that was like, oh my God. We see the Count of Monte Cristo again and again in this series, right? Now we understand its significance to Tick even more. We know that his dad loved it, but there was more to it than that. But that quote was just like perfect for the backdrop of the war that was happening and the characters and their growth and evolution, because they were growing through suffering. You know, they were suffering. It's just like they had gone through so much already and they were going through so much when they met. So there's that. The movie date scene was my official favorite scene. Oh my God. Huh. Tick is just such, oh my God. Is his name Jonathan Majors? I think I'm starting to get the names of the actors. I'm trying. We're working on it. He's so sweet. Like his charm is thoughtfulness. And I believe that he's like that in real life. I don't think that's just a Tick thing, because Tick is not like that in the book. That's him coming through. And I'm just like, oh my God. When he was holding the flower next to the projector, like, oh my God, how sweet. Oh, in his little uniform. Oh God. And he made her feel like she was the most important thing on the planet. Oh, I love it. If you're able to do that for somebody, do you know how many points you score with that person? Oh my God, it was so beautiful. I loved it. He treated her with such care, taking off her jacket, making sure that her collar was neat. Like, oh, yes. And then I mean the lines. I mean, they are putting Shakespeare to shame. Romeo and Juliet. Oh my God. You see the good in me, I know is there, he says to her, right? Before they are going to, I think they didn't make love, but they were supposed to for the first time. Like, oh God, how beautiful. Oh God, he's so thoughtful. And then we've both done monstrous things, but that does not make us monsters. This is Gia, right? When she tells him that, you killed my best friend and I don't appreciate it, bruh. But I love you. So there's that. Yes. Yes. We've both done monstrous things, but that does not make us monsters. And then shout out to the shaman. She came with the universal truth. I live by this truth. Your mortal concerns are meaningless. All this stuff that we focusing on, I mean, this is why, like, I've talked about people coming for and whatever, and they just getting their karma. As far as I'm concerned, that's because I understand this right here. Your mortal concerns are meaningless. This ish don't matter. It don't matter. You concerned, worried, and worked up. You got a problem with what? It does not matter. It don't matter. Trust me, when your soul leaves its body, you gonna be on some whole other stuff. This here is child's play. Know that. She just said it so plainly. I just, obviously it resonated with me. Don't matter. So that's that. I'm gonna actually take a quick break, y'all. This is me juggling life while recording. Usually I do this all in one sitting, but I have to get back to work. So I'm gonna pause here and then I'll see y'all in a bit. Okay, and I am back. So, where were we? Yes, let's talk about predictions. Dun, da, da, da. All right, so this is obvious by the previews, and it's somewhat parallel to the book, somewhat. The Aura is a time machine. I think that it's more of a device in the series than it was in the book. But I think that it itself is the time machine, some kind of way. And my sense is that Hippolyta, I'm so excited. She's gonna figure out like a specific sequence of I don't know, planetary alignments, and she'll be able to arrange the aura in some kind of way to like unlock something that will give her access to these other dimensions. That's my guess. So let's see what happens in the series. Doesn't quite happen like that in the book, y'all. So the whole bit about fear shaping us is going to come up again and reconnect Gia and Tick. They said that at least 3 times, I want to say, in this episode. That was important. For them to keep saying that over and over again, like, that was important. So I know that they're going to repeat that. I think that that's going to come up again, and be something that we see when Gia and Tick's paths cross again in the series. So let's wait and see what happened. Let's see. The other thing is, Gia's going to come to Tick's aid right in the nick of time. He keeps having these powerful women, shout out to Letty, saving his ASS, okay? So, like, yeah, let's see what happens with that. I think that's a low-key, like, an underlying theme, because this whole series and, like, the book itself is disruptive for a lot of different reasons that I don't even think we've discussed. Maybe I'll do that in my comparison video. But then also, like, they take a lot of tropes and themes and they disrupt them in this series. They've been doing it this whole time, giving people permission to be what they're not allowed to be in society, and not what we typically see depicted in film and in literature. So, yeah, there is that. Tick is going to be captured again. Another ritual will be attempted. Once again, if you paid attention, then you saw this, right? Now, the thing about the future is it can be changed. That's the thing about the future, right? It's not set in stone. It can be changed. It can be altered. But based off of what we see, the trajectory that Gia saw, he's going to be captured again. And this could be what takes his life, because she's saying that he's going to die, right? Just because he's going to die doesn't mean he has to die, though, right? It's the future, right? So there is that. And here's a side note. Check me out, because I told you that his great-great-granny, Hannah, has the book. If he does die, guess who has the book on the other side? Duh. So wouldn't it make sense for Hannah to give the book to her progeny, right? I mean, like, hello. I think I might have talked about this before, but like, we're not giving it to the crazy wizards. We're going to give it to our baby so that our baby can live and so that the family line can continue in a very powerful way, in a protected way, might add. And this goes back to like ancestors. Like, y'all, I just put my grannies on my altar today. Listen, the protection that comes from grannies, shout out. We have to honor that. There is special protection that comes from that. And you guys, like, you have to, like, I mean, that's granny protection times infinity right there, right? Giving your progeny the gift of protection, especially for Black people during this time. Do you know how powerful that is? What? That's some powerful ish. So, can't wait for that. And then, what else? I think that's all that I have. We're just gonna have to wait and see what happens, but I can't wait. I'm so excited about their reunion because we know that it's coming. Questions. Let's get to the questions. Women, if put in the same predicament as Gia's mom, what would you have done? She low-key reminds me of Montrose. She may not present the energy in the same way, but she low-key reminds me of him, right? Making these difficult decisions that are impacting our children's lives in not the best ways, but taking some really horrible circumstances and doing the best that you can with them. Like, I mean, what would you do? What would you do? What would you do? And I'm not condoning what she did either. But like, I mean, her options were that or starvation, right? What would you have done? Just out of curiosity. So there's that. And question: why do you fight for a country that doesn't want you? This could be from the perspective of being a soldier. This could be from the perspective of being a citizen. I'm thinking about the movement right now, Black Lives Matter. I mean, why fight for a country that doesn't want you? Once again, not a critique or a judgment, just asking the question and put it out there. What do you think? All right. And then let's talk about Gia. What would you do if you were Gia in this situation, in this story? Like, I mean, she's a freaking monster. Like, I don't know what to say. And she has so much power. And the interesting thing is, she can really do whatever the belief she wants to do. She's being obedient out of, I mean, she's being told that that's what she has to do and that's the way she has to be. But I mean, she can do whatever she wants to do. It's her world. Everybody else just eats and lives and sleeps in it. All right. Okay. The next thing is, why is good advice so hard to follow? I can't remember exactly what prompted me to write this question, but I think it was Tick and Gia. I mean, there was a lot that happened in the scene when she told him that he was going to die, but don't go home, don't do it. But he left. And now look at what happened. Why is good advice so hard to follow? And Gia, the monster, all she had to do was kill 100 souls. I mean, take 100 souls. Not saying that that's like easy, but you get my point. She gets to 99 and she can't do it. Why is good advice so hard to follow? And then we have this is a quote from Gia's mom, but it's also a question. He only cares because he doesn't know the truth of what you are. Is that true? I know he ran away in the moment, like he was scared, but he kept calling her. He called her before he even knew what was going on. Remember, I think he called her in episode 1 before he knew about all this stuff. Before Tick called Gia, before he knew he was a wizard. He didn't even know. So, I mean, what's up with that? If he didn't really care, he would not have even called that first time, right? So, I mean, how does he really feel? It's complicated, I know. This whole series is complicated. The book is complicated. It's about complicated stuff. But you get my point. Those are my questions. It's kind of short and sweet. Let's get to the juicy bits, the tidbits. So first, what's Mudang? That comes up. So Mudang is, I Googled all of this, okay? So courtesy of Google, okay, just Google it, it'll come up. Korean shamanism. This is the ethnic religion of Korea, which includes the worship of gods, nature, ancestors, and spirits, just like what we saw with the shaman or the priestess. I guess we would call her a shaman. That's what everybody's calling her. I call her a priestess, but shaman. Okay, shaman. That's what she was doing. You know, we had a fox spirit, right? We are reading the ashes. We're doing a lot, like a whole lot of different things going on, you know? I mean, they low-key, the ancestors, low-key do what I do. It's a little bit of everything because it works. Yo, it works. And this is very, very ancient. You know, modern day Korea, of course, they converted to Christianity due to American imperialism. But, I mean, their roots are otherworldly. Okay? Shout out to Jesus, though. Shout out to Jesus. Shout him out. All right. And then something else. Gia's pain had to be resonant with the Camille's. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been able to inhabit her body. This is a powerful spirit. And this is based on the universal law of resonance. Okay? Like pairs with like. You can't bleed with certain energy unless you own the frequency of the energy. Her pain, the depths of her pain were so deep that she has been able to be the vessel of of this, of this entity. If you want to think about it like that. I thought that was interesting and I wanted to point that out to you guys. You can check out the law of resonance. Just Google it, okay? Do your homework. We found out about a Kumino, that it's a 9-tailed fox spirit, okay? We found out about that. Google that if you want to know more. I also wanted to bring up the shadow, this idea of the shadow and dating patterns. So, when you keep dating the same person in different bodies and you keep wondering why the same stuff keeps happening again, that's because you ain't cleared that ish. And low key, we see, it's the datingness that's happening in this episode, like shadow. You have got to clear that. Monsters, the two monsters finding each other. Their shadows were attracted to each other. Their shadows were resonant. And that's what was working for them at the end of the day. All that pain and suffering was what united them and brought them together. Okay? That was very interesting. I wanted to bring that up. Also, we saw the Puerto Ricans in this episode, but it was just a little bit, but it was enough for me to be like, wait, what? Did y'all know that 60,000 Puerto Ricans served in the Korean War? Did y'all know that? I did not know that. I thought that was so interesting. That's a little tidbit. Let's speak about Japanese imperialism. When I lived in Asia, this came up a few times. And I got the sense that, and also after watching, what was that Amazon series called? Man on a High Castle? That was a book actually too. But certain Asian countries, the Asian countries that I rode in, they was like, still stank face towards the Japanese. They regarded the Japanese the way Americans regard the Nazis. It was like, and I get the sense that they were actually worse, as horrible as the Nazis were. And I just want y'all to be aware of that. Do a little research on that. That hurt and that pain is still there to this day. That low key mistrust and animosity is still there to this day. I wanted to touch on that. Japan colonized Korea, Taiwan, and Manchuria. They also defeated, okay, I'm going to say that again, defeated China, okay, China and Russia. This little island nation was not playing games, and they were not to be messed and toiled with, okay? I also wanted to talk to you guys about spotomancy, which is the reading of the ashes. We saw that at the very end of this episode. That is a type of divination, okay? Spotomancy, you can look that up as well. You read the ashes in the suit to get the answers. There are so many different forms of divination. I'm all for it. Find what works for you and do it. And then the last thing I want to leave you guys with is Camp Walker, okay? Camp Walker is a military base in South Korea, but there's a whole town around Camp Walker. Now I'm really intrigued. I am so intrigued to go to South Korea because I want to go. Listen, Asian malls are the best malls. I want to go to the wall. They have a mall. They have a lot going on that I want to see. So Google these things. Those are my tidbits. I am ending here, and I'm ending kind of briefly because, the show's about to start for, I took a couple of days off. I had to. So let me get off this computer. Thank you so much. I'll see you guys soon. Comment, like, and subscribe. Mwah, your love. Stay blessed and not stressed.